Dear students, today we are discussing the part B of decision making in groups. If you remember, in the last module, we discussed the concept of group polarization as part of the decision making by groups. In today's module, we will be discussing another phenomena that plays a vital role in the decision making process by groups, that is risky shift. How this concept has been developed, who was the pioneer to work on this concept, what is the concept of risky shift and what is the concept of cautious shift, when people tend to be risky, when people tend to be cautious. And we will also be discussing what are the advantages and disadvantages of group decision making, what are the barriers for effective decision making in this module. To understand this concept, let us start with an example. Helen is a writer with creative talent, but so far she has been earning a comfortable living by writing only moderate level of quality stories. Recently, when she was introspecting, she has come up with an idea for a potentially significant novel. She thought it could be written and accepted. It might have considerable literary impact and it can be a boost to her career. But on the other hand, she was also having a second thought that if she cannot work out her idea or the novel is a flop, then whatever she has been expending the time and energy without pay will be of waste. So now, if I ask you how you can help Helen by giving your advice, what Helen should do according to you? So, if you have to advise, can you check the lowest probability that you would consider acceptable for Helen to write a novel? You know, like if the novel is a success, it would be very interesting to her career. If it would be a flop, naturally she would be wasting her time and energy and also the pay which she got earlier. So, what is your probability levels, the lowest probability that you choose to see that she might be successful with this novel idea of writing a very interesting novel by spending most of the time on it? Whether your probability level is 1 by 10 or 3 by 10 or 6 by 10 or 9 by 10. So, here you can see that group shift will occur towards the risk. In this particular situation, the researcher asked the individuals to mark their answers first while alone and then again after discussing their opinions with a group. So, naturally, groups made riskier decisions than individuals, demonstrating the occurrence of risky shift. That is, a group consensus is almost always riskier than the average decision made by individuals prior to a group discussion. Risky shift occurs when people change their decisions or opinions to become more extreme and riskier when acting as part of a group compared with acting individually. This is one form of the phenomena known as group polarization. We have seen in the earlier module the concept of group polarization. Risky shift is a variation of the group polarization. So, because the risky shift has occurred, that means the group decisions are more bolder, more adventurous than those made by individuals alone and even riskier than the average of the individual's opinions and decisions before the group discussion. However, sometimes people in groups shift such that the group decision is actually more conservative, which can also be known as cautious shift. The group's initial tendency toward risk is important in predicting if risky shift will occur. The direction of the shift, that is whether to be more risky or more conservative, tends to be inconsistent with the general direction of group initial viewpoints. The term risky shift was coined by James Stoner in 1961. To examine group decision making, he asked participants to make decisions about real life scenarios that involved some amount of risk. Participants first gave their own individual ratings. Then they got together in groups and arrived at a decision together. Following this, participants made their own individual ratings again. Now, contrary to what was expected, he found group decisions were riskier. In addition, the post-discussion individual decisions also showed a shift towards increased risk. Subsequent research has shown that people in groups may make more risky decisions in a variety of situations like gambling or consumer behavior, and people in groups can become more prejudiced in their opinions of minorities or more liberal on issues like feminism. So, Stoner's study launched many other empirical studies that further specified and clarified this phenomena. He was the pioneer, but influenced by him, number of researchers has been taking place on this concept of risky shift. Just to understand, we will see some of the important researches done by various theorists. Wallach, Kogan and Bem in 1964 conducted a study and discovered that individuals may seek greater risks if there is a belief that the risk associated with a decision is shared by all members of the group. Given the shared responsibility, what will happen? The level of anxiety associated with making the decision will be lessening. Similarly, another study by Collins and Gyushko found or revealed that individuals who thrive on taking risks tend to be extremely confident and have the ability to convince other members of the group to take risks. In fact, we can bring here the personality trait also. People who are high on type T, that is thrill seeking personality, they are ready to take risk, and if they are like a leader of a particular group, even if other members are not ready to take any kind of a risk, these people can persuade them, can motivate them, inspire them to take the risks. So, our association with type T people make us also to take risks along with them. Then Bateson in his study found that individuals will continuously evaluate the level of risk associated with a decision. As a result, they can become comfortable with the risk associated with a decision and underestimate it. Risky shift eventually came to known as group polarization or group induced attitude polarization. This change in name arose from various discoveries about the dynamics of this particular tendency that exists among the people. People in groups would shift their opinions away from the average level and move toward the extreme version of the opinion favored by the group. So, if individuals in the group favored risk compared to the average kind of a decision, then after discussion they would favor even riskier behavior. The same would be true if the average tendency was toward caution. After discussion, members would shift their opinions toward a more cautious level. For example, if you can just look at this figure, it is on a continuum. In between, that is at the moderate kind of a decision, that is a neutral decision, stands on an average level. Suppose like as a member of the group, if you have a very moderate kind of a decision, whether after the discussion would you become more cautious after listening to the members' opinions, or would you become more risky after listening to the members' discussion? It depends upon how all the members in the group are expressing their opinion. If most of them are expressing to take a cautious decision, wherever you are in the middle of the continuum, that is very neutral position, you might be moving on to the cautious level. But if you are part of that group where you are interacting with the group members who are ready to take riskier decisions, and if you also have, as I just discussed, people with type T, automatically you will also be moving from neutral position to the riskier level. So, this is how the risky shift will be understood. Now, why this kind of a shift towards the risk occurs? One reason that is hypothesized is risk is considered as a value. Moderate risk is valued in our culture. If you are very complacent, not ready to take the risk, naturally sometimes you might also be considered as a failure, that you are very complacent, like happy with whatever you have. But if you are ambitious, or if you are expected to be ambitious, and if people are expecting something more from you, naturally they will also expect you to take the risk. So, under those situations, as risk is also valued in our culture, people want to shift towards risky decisions to gain status and approval from other group members. Then what is this cautious shift? Many experiments demonstrated a shift toward risk, but sometimes people demonstrated a shift toward caution after the group discussion. We can take a small illustration here for the cautious shift. There is a person by name Roger, a young married man with 2 school-aged children and a secure but very low paying job. He can afford life's necessities, but he cannot really go for luxuries. So, he came to know about the stock of a relatively unknown company which may have triple in value of its new product, and it is favorably received. But if the product is not accepted, it may fail. Roger has no savings to invest in the company. He thought of selling his life insurance policy. So, he wants to improve his life conditions and he was contemplating on this. So, what advice you would give, whether to go for a risky decision or a cautious decision? So, in this particular situation, when Roger thinking or contemplating to sell his life insurance policy and make the risky investment, if he is allowed to be a part of the group, listen to the decisions of the group members, then if a group were thinking the initial decision of this group is to advise a risky decision or a cautious decision, based on that, naturally the Roger may take the cautious decision or a risky decision. Now, let us understand what are the reasons for the occurrence of this risky shift. This risky shift in group or in the functioning of the group may occur for a variety of reasons. First reason is the individuals with more extreme views may be more confident, committed and persuasive compared with the more conservative members of the group. So, as a result, what happens? People present their arguments to the group members and they will also hold a stronger belief in their opinions and in turn be willing to make more extreme decisions. These stronger opinions may carry more weight in determining the final decision. Another reason for the occurrence of risky shift is that the group may fail to consider all available opinions and possibilities. That is, there may be a biased filtering and communicating of the views, facts and findings, because motivation by an individual to promote his own opinion may filter out all the other opinions and attitudes. This insufficient exploration by the group may not analyze the costs and benefits of each choice, and this may lead to the assumptions in which negative outcomes are overlooked. Another reason why risky shift occurs is the role of emotions. Suppose if you are part of a group discussion where emotions are involved, naturally the risky shift may occur. So, a research by Moscovici and Giavelloni, who found that if the subject of an experiment is anything that will cause participants to become personally involved, that is, if it is something that evokes meaning among group members, then group polarization is likely to result. Although the goal of group decision making is to result in more educated, well-rounded and better decisions, risky shift may be a deterrent to this. In groups such as juries or panels of judges, committees of generals or boards of directors, as a result of group discussion, the group may choose a riskier option than a single juror or judge, general or CEO who would alone take a decision. Unfortunately, in some cases, this may result in poor, even disastrous decisions and outcomes. So far, we have understood the concept of risky shift, and you also understood the concept of group polarization as a part of decision making. Now, let us see what are the advantages of group decision making. Group decision making has two advantages over individual decision making. One is synergy. The group decision making involves synergy. That is, the whole is greater than the aggregate or its parts. I think you remember this axiom. When a group makes a decision collectively, its judgment can be powerful than that of any of its members. Through discussing, questioning and collaborative approach, group members can identify more complete and robust solutions and recommendations. The second advantage is sharing of information. Group decisions take into account a wider scope of information, as each group member may contribute different information, novel ideas due to their expertise. So, sharing of the information increases understanding, clarifies issues and facilitates movement toward a collective decision. However, like for any phenomena, there are two sides. Similarly, group decision making not only has the advantages, but also it has some disadvantages. Now, let us see what are the disadvantages of group decision making. The major disadvantages of group decision making are: the first disadvantage is diffusion of responsibility. You have understood the concept of diffusion of responsibility. No one is ready to take the responsibility for the decision that is taken. It is distributed among all the members. So, group decision making results in distribution of responsibility that results in lack of accountability for outcomes. In this way, everyone is responsible for a decision when no one is actually responsible. Moreover, group decisions can make it easier for members to refuse personal responsibilities and blame others for bad decisions. The second disadvantage is lower efficiency. Group decisions can sometimes be less efficient than individual decisions. It takes additional time because there is need of active participation, discussion and coordination among group members. It is time consuming process, and without good facilitation and structure, meetings can get eliminated even in trivial details that may matter a lot to one person but not to the others. Then the third concept is groupthink. One of the biggest disadvantages of effective group decision making is groupthink. It is a psychological phenomenon that occurs within a group of people in which the wish for harmony or conformity results in an illogical or dysfunctional decision making outcome. That is, what happens in this situation is, in order to avoid conflict with others, you refrain from the outside influences and actively suppress opposing viewpoints in the interest of minimizing conflict. Group members reach a consensus decision without critical evaluation of substitute viewpoints. So, it is almost like a S-boss type. To avoid further disharmonies or conflicts or any other kind of deviations, we try to take the consensus aspect of the group. So, as a result, we are not looking into the pitfalls of the decision taken by the group members. So, groupthink sometimes produces dehumanizing actions against the outgroup. Now, let us see what are the pitfalls or barriers to effective group decision making. the most important barrier is procrastination. Replacing high priority tasks with tasks of lower priority, the second barrier will be bolstering. Reinforcing a decision by exaggerating its favorable consequences and minimizing the importance of its unfavorable consequences. The third barrier is denying responsibility. No individual can be held accountable for the results of the decision taken by the group. The fourth pitfall or the barrier is cognitive limitations and subsequent errors. Cognitive and motivational biases can often impact group decision making. There are three types of biases that occurs in the process of decision making. One is sense of commission, the misuse or inappropriate use of the information that is shared in the group. Sense of omission, that is the overlooking of useful information. The other one is sense of imprecision, that is relying too heavily on heuristics, that is on experiments, which may overly simplify complex decisions. To conclude this particular module, you have understood now the concept of risky shift, and John Stoner, who has pioneered this concept of risky shift, why this risky shift occurs, different reasons behind it, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of the group decision making processes, and some of the barriers that might be hindering this process of decision making. So, once you have understood these concepts of group polarization and risky shift, observe yourself in your day-to-day situations, under what situations you are able to take a risky decision, under what situations you are trying to be more conscious or more cautious, and what factors are facilitating you to move your opinion or decision towards the extreme decision. And this kind of a concept can be applied in your day-to-day life with your own family members and among your peer groups. You can generate certain group discussions whenever you are part of the class. Take some opinion or take some kind of an attitude towards a particular issue, listen to them, facilitate a group discussion, and then see how many of your classmates will change their initial opinion towards the consensus of the group. This is how the concept of polarization and risky shift will influence the decision making process.